I beg your indulgence at the start of this video if I actually end up using this, and if you're watching this, then that means that I wound up using it. What I'm really doing here is thinking out loud, and that's mostly what I do on this channel, and that's why I don't really blame anybody who finds it not to their taste, because it's, obviously not whiz-bang entertainment, and it's just me fumbling towards articulacy and sometimes being semi-articulate on whatever subject is that I'm that I'm covering. But today there's a subject that I'm really contemplating writing about, except I don't have it formed in my mind yet exactly how I feel about everything, or what I think about everything. But I know there's something there. The subject involves Russia, the importance of Russia. And this is something that I've alluded to a few times before, but I've come to think of it more and more to a greater and greater extent. And I'm more and more intrigued by the question, because it seems to me that there is something there. Now, those of you who don't know anything about the apparitions of Fatima, I personally think it's a very interesting story, regardless of whether you are Catholic or not. Of course, if you are Catholic, even if you're Catholic, you don't have to believe in Fatima. It's a private revelation. It's something that's been certified to be authentic, but it's also something that it's not anyone's. It's not a part of the creed. It's not something that you have to believe in order to be a Catholic in good standing, so to speak. But it's a story. It's an event that many have taken inspiration from, and many are intrigued by, and many are mystified by. And it has all those qualities, in that sort of draw the person who's into unraveling mysteries, because in some ways it remains mysterious. There are certain things that were forecasted that obviously did come to pass. So it's one of those prophecies where, you look at it and that happened. And it's also something in which the ultimate reason for why it took place is still shrouded in mystery. Why would God have Mary, the Blessed Virgin Mary, appear to three children in a small village in Portugal, 1917? These children basically were dirt poor, ignorant, not ignorant in a pejorative sense, but just they were illiterate. They were just simple peasant children. And Our Lady was entrusting them with these incredibly important matters. It's one of those moments where, I can't remember the exact verse, but somewhere in the Bible, there's something about, God keeps the wise, those who are worldly wise, keeps them in the dark. Those who reckon themselves to be the wise ones, he keeps them away from things that are important to know because of their pride, and instead those, like these children, these humble servants of his, these are the ones that he knows are the most trustworthy, the ones who it is most propitious to share some important important details, some important revelations. I've spoken about Fatima before, and I've spoken about Russia a few times before. And I even saw some cosmic significance in the and this was a controversial thing on my part, I guess, or it was maybe not controversial so much as it was something that people thought I was being stupid and foolish to say. But to me, it was very interesting, cosmologically speaking, that Russia's invasion of Ukraine with the idea of getting these these breakaway republics back into their own hands, back into the Russian Federation, the timing which inspired that invasion, or the timing in which that invasion took place, just happened to be when, cosmologically speaking, the United States was about to enter the phase of decline. It's been in the phase of decline for a while. I don't think anyone would deny that. That's an uncontroversial thing for me to say. I don't think anyone would say, "Oh, yeah, this is the high ebb of the American." They don't like to call it an empire, but this is when America is just at its strongest and its most alluring and its most powerful and influential. No, that's not happening anymore. America is clearly in a state of decline right now. So it's interesting to me, putting the present aside, just going back more than a century to the visitation of the children at Fatima by the Blessed Virgin Mary, and the revelations that were given to them. And I'm not going to go into detail about them here, but you should look into it further if you're intrigued if you don't know about it, but you're intrigued by the question. Then I invite you to explore and see for yourself. What I will say is that much of the revelations centered around Russia. And in 1917, during the time of the visitations in 1917, this was prior to October of 1917, when the Bolshevik Revolution happened in Russia. Prior to that, Russia was just this backwater, pretty much. This, mostly agricultural, non-industrialized serf state. It wasn't what anyone thought would be, important, geographically speaking, culturally speaking. It was not what any wise man would think was the center of the world. The center of the world was London. It was Paris. The language that was spoken, I guess maybe this was changing in the beginning of the 20th century, but for most of the 19th century, the language that the educated all spoke was French. That was like the language that you took pride in speaking, to denote your intellectuality, to denote that you belonged to the intelligentsia. But the revelations were about Russia. The children didn't even know who or what Russia was. They thought maybe Russia's a woman, a woman who is heading in the wrong direction morally, and who needs to shape up and find God, as we say today. That was what the children thought, that Russia was a woman of ill repute or something like that, or who knows what maybe they didn't even think that, because these were innocent-minded young children. So they just thought she was a woman who needed to be corrected. So apparently it was important enough Russia was important enough that it needed to be consecrated. A prayer needed to be said by the hierarchy of the church, by the Pope and the bishops, in coordination with one another. A prayer needed to be said for the consecration of Russia to the Sacred Heart of Mary. This is what the children revealed. This is what they told the skeptical churchmen who questioned them. And eventually this revelation came to be revered within the church. But of course, at the time, both those in the church and those outside the church, the doubters, the atheists, the Masonic types, we just saw these as stupid, superstitious children who were making stuff up and for their attention or something like that, to get attention, to draw attention to themselves, to try to create drama, as we say today. Then there was the miracle of the sun, which I won't go into here, but again, if this interests you, look into it. And tens of thousands of people saw this miracle, and among them were many who were skeptical, who were doubters, who were there to ridicule these kids. They saw it too. Numerous testimonies. But I don't want to dwell on those things, not because they're not important and not because they're not interesting. I'm interested in why Russia, Why was it all about Russia? Again, from a God's eye view, he must have seen something that we didn't see, that humanity in the early part of the 20th century didn't see. Anyway, one thing I will say about these the words of the Blessed Virgin to these three peasant children in the little town of Fatima in Portugal. Thing she did tell them was that if this prayer was not said, that the world would be thrust into another world war, and that there would be a sign in the heavens to forecast that this was going to happen. Well, the consecration of Russia was not said. There was a sign in the heavens, which you can look into again if you want to find out more about this whole thing. I'm not an authority, so I don't want to steer you wrong on that in anything, in the regard of anything that I'm alluding to, but not going into detail about. So look into it on your own if it interests you. But this did happen. The prayer wasn't said. There was a sign in the heavens, and there was another world war. During this world war, and especially after this world war, Russia became this huge player on the world stage. Russia in the form of the USSR, the Soviet Union. Now here's where I want to switch gears again. Let me go back in time to the 19th century, when Russia was the backwater, just this serf state run by a monarchy, barely industrialized, running way behind the West as far as the measures of, quote, civilization and progress go. During this time, you had this author / prophet named Fyodor Dostoevsky. Dostoevsky started off his life, and again, I'm talking about this stuff like I'm an expert, but I'm anything but an expert. So again, go to the primary sources to find out stuff that's trustworthy. But Dostoevsky began his literary career as very much a leftist revolutionary sort. And most of the intellectuals in Russia in the 19th century were embarrassed by being Russian. It was very similar in some ways to, what you see with like NPR, white liberals today in the West. By NPR, people in America know what I'm referring to, but that's just one of those historical or cultural landmarks that if you're American, what it means to be an NPR listener. Probably analogs in other Western countries that mean similar things. But the standard white liberal leftist, woke white liberal leftist of today in the West resembled the liberal leftist elitist intelligentsia of the 19th century in many, many ways. Just like the white liberal leftist is ashamed of his own history, thinks that white people don't exist, thinks that white history doesn't exist, thinks that whiteness is something to be ashamed of. In the same way, the Russian intelligentsia thought to themselves, we don't want to identify ourselves as a Russian. We see ourselves as more European. We want to identify as European. We get together and speak French to one another so that we can feel superior to all these rednecks and yahoos that surround us here in Russia. So young Dostoevsky was very much taken up in that whole fervor. He was a political revolutionary, and he even wrote a couple of novels, his early novels, when he was in that ideological frame of mind. And then he was arrested and sentenced to die, and he thought that he was going to hang. And at the very last minute, there was an intervention, and the Tsar said, "Don't hang those men." They got clemency from high places, and that was a huge turning point for Dostoevsky, as you can imagine, as anyone could imagine, if you were convinced, if you knew that you were about to be hanged. This was it. You're about to die at the hands of the state because of what you've been promoting, the subversiveness that you've been promoting, and your ideological stance on things, and being a troublemaker and so forth in the eyes of the authorities. And then the authorities say, "No, we'll give you clemency. We'll let you live." Huge moment for Dostoevsky, a mind-shaping moment for him. And he becomes eventually this, like the very inverse of what he'd begun, of how he'd started out, intellectually speaking, philosophically speaking. He became this major advocate for Russia and for the institutions of Russia. The Tsar, the royal family, the Russian Orthodox Church. He became a cultural and political reactionary, and that was when actually he wrote his best work, his work that is still revered to this day. So Dostoevsky saw Russia as representing something unique in history. He came to see Russia as a kind of Israel, the way that not the way a secular Jew thinks of Israel as being a homeland and in a strictly nationalistic sense, but the way that an Orthodox Jew views Israel as the land that was given to his people by God, prophesied in the Old Testament. This is similar to how Dostoevsky came to see Russia, not that they were, in the Bible or anything like that, or that God was talking to the Israelites. He was actually talking to the Russians, or anything. It was nothing like that. It was just that Russia represented in some mystical way what would be the salvation of the world. That's where I'm going to stop now. I'll go on with my thoughts maybe in another video soon. Thanks for watching.